Hey, how's it going, guys? My name's Luke. Calling this channel MMA Mathematician because I study math, and I'd like to think by virtue of that, I analyze things as logically as possible. Of course, MMA math isn't a true science. But without further ado, I'm gonna get into my GOAT list. I don't think I have any real contrarian takes here, but let's see what you guys think. Starting off with some honorable mentions. I think I think at this point the modern era defenses should be weighed a little more heavily than some of the defenses that you guys probably value your goats having. I think Pantoja's getting there. I think three flyweight defenses at this point in time is a little more serious than any three of Demetrius Johnson's three flyweight title defenses in the UFC, for example. I think I think a guy like Brandon Moreno, I think a guy like Brandon Royval, I even think Steve Ursig. I think they take a shit on someone like Tim Elliott, quite frankly. Uh, which isn't to say that I think Pantoja is better than Demetrius Johnson. Really, more just the case that this guy is getting there, right? Dricus du Plessis, it's the same thing, right? We've seen him run through Adesanya, run through Robert Whitaker. I think part of me factors in that I think he's got a good chance against Hamzat Chimaev. And honestly, when we see Dricus du Plessis beat Hamzat Chimaev, I think I would probably move him right up to my number 15 spot. And you got Dominic Cruz maybe clinging here for as long as possible. I don't really think he's got enough wins to stay at the top anymore. Quite a few losses, right? Lost to Marlon Vera. Probably a worse loss than any of the other fighters on this list, except maybe like a Matt Serra GSP loss. But it wasn't fluky, I don't think, you know? I think Marlon Vera is just better than Dominic Cruz at this point, and I think just as well a guy like Piotr Jan is, you could rate him higher than Dominic Cruz. I think maybe you could offer Adesanya as an honorable mention, but that loss over Imavov knocked him down a few pegs for me. Let's just get in there. Number 15, we've still got Stipe Miocic. I don't personally love the heavier weight class guys sneaking up into this list. I think lighter man skill is real. That's all I've got to say about that. But Stipe, he still got the most heavyweight title defenses. The loss to John Jones doesn't really hurt his legacy, right? Does losing to the best fighter of all time hurt your legacy? I don't think so. And you'll see that most of the fighters on this list have only lost to other fighters on this list. All right, Anderson Silva. I know many of you probably want to throw Anderson somewhere in your top 10. I just think he was beating too many cans, right? Like Rich Franklin was literally a math teacher. I don't I don't think these guys are breaking into the top 15 or any of the rankings today in middleweight. I think Anderson Silva might have marred his career fighting a little too long, losing a little too much, performance enhancing drugs. That's all I've got to say about that. But a 16 fight win streak nonetheless being the best that we have right now. I do think a guy like Islam will surpass that. I hope. But what can we do? Okay. Number 13, Demetrius Johnson. You guys probably don't like this. A lot of you might have just clicked off. It goes with what I was saying about Pantoja, right? Demetrius Johnson, 11 title defenses in the UFC, I think, but we're just not talking about the same quality of guys. And Demetrius Johnson's best win, Henry Cejudo, he also lost to. And I don't know how long you guys have been watching the sport, but I personally remember watching Ian McCall, Uncle Creepy, just mount and absolutely beat the shit out of Demetrius Johnson in their fight where they were contesting for the vacant belt. I do think I think going through this now, maybe I do want to switch a guy like Jose Aldo and Demetrius Johnson. But here's the thing. Aldo just has way more quality, and Demetrius Johnson has way more quantity. I think being outside of the UFC obviously doesn't help his legacy. I think Demetrius Johnson could have been a top 5 all time. But I mean, we just can't really value the outside the UFC career path as much as being in the UFC, especially when we're seeing guys like Patchy Mix come over and get their ass beat by like our number 9 ranked Mario Batista. I do think Demetrius Johnson is if this was a skill list, I think he'd be right up there at the top. This is solely based on resume. But it's hard to not like DJ. I mean, if you've ever watched any of his channel, seen how skilled he is, seen him make what's that guy's name? Oh, the Street Beefs guy. Fuck. Death Sentence. There it is. I am Death Sentence. That might help his legacy a little bit. I'm not gonna lie to you. Jose Aldo. I think the reason I think maybe I misplaced Aldo here is he's just lost too many more times compared to someone like Demetrius Johnson. So I think it would be fair to put Aldo 13, Demetrius Johnson 12. 11, we got Max Holloway. I don't know how you could argue with this if you feel okay having Aldo at a spot like 13 or 12. At this point, I don't think anyone could argue that Aldo is a greater fighter than Max Holloway. I think Holloway's loss to Ilia Topuria doesn't really hurt his legacy. We just saw... I mean, we're seeing everyone get knocked out by Ilia Topuria, and he's probably going to knock Charles Oliveira's head into the bleachers pretty soon here. So, yeah, I mean, Max Holloway, perhaps the greatest volume striker of all time, had a pretty dominant little stint at featherweight until he walked into Volkanovski. What can you do about that? And, of course, Ilia Topuria. But, I mean, there's not really a lot of people who beat this guy. Even his loss, like, to Poirier, right? Moving up short notice. He's still in his featherweight frame. Poirier is the greatest fighter to never win an undisputed belt, so there's not really a ton of shame in that. I think Holloway moving to lightweight is only going to help his legacy. You saw what he did to Gaethje. I think he might mince Poirier just as well. It's hard to look at that Gaethje performance and do the math from Gaethje versus Poirier to arrive at the fact that you think Poirier would beat Max Holloway at this point. All right, number 10, Kamaru Usman. I don't know why that Kamaru Usman picture is so red, but looks like he just got off an episode of Hot Ones. What the hell? I don't know. I think Kamaru Usman belongs in everyone's GOAT list somewhere, right? This is the only guy, as Chael Sonnen says, the only guy you could compare at welterweight to George St. Pierre and not look like a complete dipshit, really. Resume-wise, you might be saying something like a Jorge Masvidal, a Colby Covington is a little weak, but those guys are undoubtedly better than someone like Tim Elliott, even someone better from the better caliber of Demetrius Johnson's UFC wins, like a John Dodson. I think Jorge Masvidal and Colby Covington are both just better wins than a John Dodson. I'm sorry. And I think, although he's on his little losing stint right now, I think that performance against Hamzat was really impressive. And I think I think maybe after this weekend, if Kamaru Usman gets his ass handed to him by Joaquin Buckley, maybe we drop him down a little bit. But for now, I like Kamaru Usman here, and I think I'm certain of Kamaru Usman hanging on to this 10 spot, potentially moving up to number 9 if he gets this win this weekend. I think he's being a little bit discounted. I don't think Joaquin Buckley is that special, but I could see Usman losing later in that fight, perhaps by a TKO. All right, number 9, we got Daniel Cormier. Now, maybe some of you are saying I'm overrating Daniel Cormier a little bit, but I do think he's just higher than a guy like Stipe, right? He's the only double champ to ever defend either of his belts, and that in itself, I feel like could warrant you a spot in the top 15, right? I mean, Daniel Cormier is only really troubled by fighters that are also on this GOAT list. John Jones, Stipe Miocic. Can't argue with that. All right, so you probably noticed 9 doesn't go directly to 7, but kind of got a little bit of a tie for 7. And you might not like this. I would have just outright had Pereira higher, but the loss to Magomed obviously hurts him a little bit. He could redeem himself there, but there's something to be said about Khabib just never losing. I personally hate Khabib. I think he's got one of the most overrated resumes ever. Being undefeated is wildly impressive. His big wins are impressive. Michael Johnson, Edson Barboza, Conor McGregor, Poirier, Gaethje, all great wins. All fit well, pretty stylistic. All fit pretty well for him stylistically. Kind of free wins. I don't think Khabib could ever advance any further on this list. I don't know if he was ever a top 5 fighter personally. I think his dominance is a little overrated. I think we look at Khabib as though he's first round Khamzat Chimaev for every round. But if you go watch a fight like McGregor v. Nurmagomedov, McGregor's actually pretty successful defensively there. I mean, took no damage in the first round, completely stops takedowns in the third round, even wins it on the feet. Maybe the only round we ever saw Nurmagomedov lose. I just think he had some matchups that were tailor-made for him. But I think there's something to be said about Pereira's success in 2 divisions, right? Knocking out guys like Strickland, knocking out Adesanya, moving up and just outclassing everyone at light heavyweight, outclassing Yuri, outclassing Jamal, eking by Jan Blachowicz a little bit, but that's an all-time great win. That's a top 5 light heavyweight. I think Pereira could get that Magomed win back. If Pereira doesn't ever win the belt again, maybe I'm okay with you dropping him to the 8 and putting Khabib ahead of him because of the undefeated streak. I think I didn't mention this, but one of Pereira's best wins is Sean Strickland, right? And that's someone Kamaru Usman beat in his welterweight days. So I think that's just even more reason to warrant a Kamaru Usman number 10 spot. All right, let's move on. Number 6, Ilia Topuria. Maybe this is a little controversial, but let's just be frank. Ilia Topuria just had the 2 greatest back-to-back wins of all time. He just beat 2 top 15 fighters of all time by knockout, Volkanovski and Max Holloway. I don't think any 2 wins in a row ever in history have compared to that. I don't know if there's ever been a power puncher that compares to Ilia. I do think he's pound for pound the biggest puncher the UFC's ever seen. I think his boxing skill is ridiculous. I don't think Charles Oliveira stands a chance, to be frank. I think that's just more legacy builder for Ilia Topuria. Not much to be said, right? I don't. Obviously, he's in the early stages of his career. This could bite me. He could fall off pretty hard. He could lose to Charles. But let's hope he beats Charles, because someday seeing Ilia versus Islam could be like the all-time defining GOAT fight, if we're being honest. I don't think any of these other fighters, pound for pound, regardless who you choose, are doing what he just did to Max Holloway and Volkanovski consecutively. And I don't think that the Volkanovski win should be discounted so much because Volkanovski looked pretty prime in that fight. He was kind of touching Ilya up. He was outpointing him. He just got hit by that nuclear option of a right hand, and I don't think there's anything any featherweight in the world could do about that. Not even Max Holloway, Granite Chin himself. All right, number 5. This is what actually instigated my wanting to make a GOAT list. I was hopping into some streams, throwing out that I think Merab Dvalishvili is the number 5 fighter of all time. I don't know how you could argue against that at this point. I mean, he beat Sean O'Malley twice. The last Sean O'Malley win, maybe not so impressive. He did outclass Sean O'Malley. A lot of you were probably saying Sean O'Malley never really deserved to be in the title picture to begin with, but he beat this Sean O'Malley with no injuries. He beat champion Sean O'Malley. He absolutely just owns an undefeated Nurmagomedov in the 4th and 5th round. Like, I know at this point Umar's not got an established resume, but that win really is analogous to like a bantamweight Islam, and I think that's only going to age better and better. Petr Yan, another great, could have even made this list. Pound for pound, I think he's whooping someone like Stipe, right? And Merab just rolls these guys, 5-0s them, makes them look like nothing. Henry Cejudo, that's Demetrius Johnson's best win, and Merab's dropping him around like a sack of potatoes. I mean, I don't know what else there is to be said. This guy is a machine, and I don't think that anyone is doing anything to him anytime soon. I think he's going to continue to defend at bantamweight. He's going to build his resume more and more. However, I don't. This is interesting, right? I would like to see Merab move to featherweight, obviously, but you don't want to see him fight Volkanovski. I think at this point, Volkanovski might be too slick for him even still. I think Volkanovski has enough cardio to hang for 5 rounds, and Volkanovski is just an all-time great IQ of the sport and talent. So, number 4, Volkanovski. I think at this point, although Volkanovski's not in his prime, anyone who doesn't present a real power threat, he can handle. Not much to be said. I mean, outclassing guys like Jose, and Max Holloway, Chad Mendes, Korean Zombie, Brian Ortega, Yair Rodriguez. I mean, the featherweight division has just been stacked for the past, ever since its inception, really. And Volkanovski always comes in with a game plan and outclasses all of these guys. I don't know how you could say he's any lower. Just as well, I don't know how you could argue for him being higher, though. His losses to Islam, obviously, and Islam is only on the rise himself. I think Islam is just a couple wins away from passing up our number 2 spot, and even all the way up to the number 1 spot. Right? You got Islam fighting JDM soon. I think that win might just move him into the number 2 spot. I think another win after that might make Islam the GOAT of the sport. I think Islam is just maybe the most skilled overall fighter that there's ever been in the UFC. And a pretty ridiculous resume. Just who's beating this guy? Pound for pound all time. Who beats Islam Makhachev? I think the only real asterisk right now, aside from maybe a half of a Volkanovski win that time at UFC 294, is the fact that he kind of got away from that Ilya fight, you know? I don't really love that never happened. I hope that does take place someday. Moving on. Number 2. You still got GSP clinging to that spot. I've been watching MMA for about 15 years, and this was the reason. This was, my dad is buying these pay-per-views in 2010, and we're watching GSP come out, and just, as an athlete that kind of transcended the sport, he always had these game plans. He surrounded himself with the great minds of the sport, John Danaher and Freddie Roach and Faraz Sahabi. I think athletically, GSP could hang with anyone today. I do think, obviously that era was a little weaker, but I do think at the time the welterweight was kind of the murderer's row, right? Like, Josh Koscheck was no slouch. Carlos Condit was no slouch. Champions of other organizations. You got guys like Jake Shields, another champion from another organization coming in. And GSP is just like systematically beating all these guys, right? GSP wasn't going out beating the shit out of anyone or finishing people that often, but he was just comfortably doing what he needed to outclass these guys. Maybe you could argue that Johnny Hendricks' controversial win mars his career somewhat, but Hendricks was probably roided up, and that's especially evident in the fact that after the GSP fight and after his Robbie Lawler fights, he kind of just shit the bed, right? We're seeing a guy like Paulo Costa just own Johnny Hendricks, and his body looks so much softer. I think GSP is the second greatest of all time, and I think there's still an argument for you to put him at number one. I would say at this point, though, I'm not the biggest fan of number one, which of course is John Jones. He's undeniably the greatest talent of all time. I mean, the guy makes up moves in the middle of the fight, just owned all sorts of legends. He's come back into this generation, the modern era, and taken on everyone they have to offer there. But he's running from Tom Aspinall, right? Like, I don't think that's going to help his career. I think he could be sitting at one, even if he did just get out right now. But as an MMA fan, you just can't feel good about having to tell someone that the GOAT of your sport is John Jones, right? Like, he's kind of a piece of shit, scumbag outside the sport, even in the sport. Not really the cleanest fighter. And I think there's nobody who's been a better winner than John Jones. But he's kind of made himself into a pussy because of that, and it's really starting to frustrate me, and I'm sure a lot of you are frustrated. Anyway, I think that's about all I've got. Let me know what you think of my list. Let me know if you think I need to further delve into any points, develop any points. This was my first video, so probably far from the most thorough, but I'm working on it. Thank you guys.